All right. What's going on, guys? Good to see Space Junk in the live stream. I see some people coming into the Discord as well. Kane, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Ahmed's here. Carter KO19 is here. What's up, Carter? Good to see you guys. I see Marlboro Red again. Good to see you as well. Today, what we're going to be doing is similar to last time. I'm going to be taking questions and answering them. The more specific your question is, especially if you have a story that you're currently working on, the better I can help you. So keep that in mind as you're asking questions. And if you are on YouTube and you want to come in and join the Discord and ask me a question directly, then there should be a link below this YouTube live stream where you can hop in and come on in. So what's going on? August Priyanshu, good to see you all. Just going to start by letting people funnel in here. Mr. Pink's Violin, first time catching the stream. Welcome. Welcome. Good to see you in. For those of you in the Discord, if you have a question that you want to ask me, you can raise your hand by clicking the little raise hand button. Should be in the top right of your screen, and I will bring you up, and we will talk about what you want to talk about. All right, let's see here. Okay, Ahmed is wanting to speak. I'm going to bring him up. Hey, Ahmed, how are you?
How are you, Tyler? Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm fine. How are you?
Perfect. Perfect. What's going on, Ahmed? How are you?
Yeah, I'm alright. Last time we talked, it was about like a year ago, I guess. We talked about how I was like getting good at screenwriting, been doing it for a while and stuff. And you said I had to like have more experiences in life in general, also outside of writing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've been doing for the last like couple of months. Been doing a lot of stuff away from film and screenwriting and stuff. And now I'm getting sensing my way back in.
Okay.
So yeah, and I want to thank you because you listened to my request about like changing the time of the stream. Now I
Mm-hmm.
can catch it. Like even if it's like for half an hour or anything, I can participate now. So that's great.
Perfect.
But you said like story specific questions are alright. You said that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because what it is, I have a story I'm working on right now. And the thing is, it's consisting of like different elements. I know a couple of the characters I want to have. I know the general plot. I might even have a log line. And I
Okay.
know like the conflict, what it wants to say or what I want to say with it. But yeah, it just feels, I don't know. It doesn't really feel like a story yet. I think it's missing something to tie it together into like a tight premise. That's what I'm looking for, really.
You said you had a log line?
Yeah,
What's your
yeah,
log line?
yeah. So the logline is let me get the doc. Yeah, uh, yeah. So the logline is when a teenager is caught up in the nasty divorce of his parents and he clashes with his father. He must rise up and navigate the situation before he becomes yet another part in the cycle of trauma. That's the logline.
Okay. So let me do this here. Okay. I'm going to share my screen with you.
Yeah, right.
You should see this, and then let me do this. Okay, cool. Okay, so repeat the logline to me one more time.
When a teenager is caught up in the nasty divorce of his parents and clashes with his father, he must rise up and navigate the situation before he becomes yet another part in the cycle of trauma.
Navigate the situation before.
He becomes yet another part in the cycle of trauma.
In the cycle of, what was the last word?
Trauma.
Trauma, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a log line here.
A bit long, but yeah, that's why I feel like it's a bit unfocused, and
For
that's
sure.
why.
Okay, so let's break this down here. Okay, so we have when a teenager. So I want to first off break up this log line into its important parts here. So we're going to have a main character, right? We're going to have, that's teenager, and then we're going to have inciting incident, and then you have goal, and then you have stakes. Now, what's great about this log line that you have already is that we have clearly a main character, there's clearly an inciting incident, there's a goal, there is stakes. So I am glad that you followed the logline formula pretty well here. Now, the issue, so when a teenager, this is fine, is caught up in the nasty divorce of his parents, I think that's also good. This is super vague. What do you mean by he must rise up and navigate the situation? What does that look like? Is there a way that we can specify this goal?
Yeah, I mean, about how it can be written in the logline. We can talk about that, but I can explain what I mean by it in like the story in general.
Go for it.
Yeah. So what it is, it's like the reason for that nasty divorce basically, and why it's taking a toll on him and on the family, is because of his father, and how his father is actually like a bad person. How he's dealing with this situation like very not how you're supposed to deal with it, like as a man or as a father or whatever.
Okay,
And
so his father is the problem here?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And yeah, so
go ahead.
yeah, so the stakes I see is that he must like um yeah, like take responsibility for him and his mother and his little sister. That these are the characters in the story,
Mm-hmm.
and like just yeah, avoid this event affecting him in a negative way, so he doesn't become yet another part in that generational trauma. You know what I mean? Because how his father deals is also because of what happened to him in his younger years. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like a circle that keeps going, and our protagonist must break that circle by just learning to deal with this situation before it takes like a toll on him, or
Right.
before
So we need to get more specific on what you mean by learning to deal with the situation.
yeah.
Turn his mic down.
Yeah, so
Okay. Um, cool. Because here's what I'm missing, Ahmed. So I think the biggest thing that I'm struggling with right now, who is your antagonist in the story? Is it the father?
yeah, it's the father, yes.
Okay. So then I think, so what is the father doing he's the one that is starting this divorce, correct? Or no?
Oh, he is like within the family dynamic, he's been treating them all like badly. He's been treating like the protagonist mother badly for like their entire marriage. He's been cheating. He's been doing like these stuff, and his the protagonist's mother has had enough, and then she files for the divorce.
Okay. So
And then his father reacts like in an outrageous way, just trying to harm them
okay.
as
So
much as he can,
that's what I'm
basically.
looking. Okay. So this is what I'm looking for when we're trying to figure out the specificity of this goal here, right? navigate the situation is not clear, right? However, you're saying that the father is the problem, our antagonist is the father.
Yeah.
So maybe the goal here is something to the effect of our main character must um, uh, like successfully remove his family or successfully get his mother and siblings away from his father or something like this, so that we are getting a clearer sense of what the goal of the story is going to be, so we can get a sense of the pass or fail goal. Because right now this is super vague and it is not pass fail. We don't have a sense of how do we know if the character has succeeded. So is the goal to remove the family from the father?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like
So
that's on like the general story, but yeah, the thing is there how can I explain this? What you're saying right now, that is the main goal, yes, but something our protagonist like doesn't notice until he's into his arc or he's into his character development is that while he's trying to do that, he must avoid like turning into yet another version of what his father has become, you know what I
I
mean?
understand. I understand, but remember, so this right now what we're doing is we're building a log line, right? In a log line,
Yeah.
we have one singular sentence to get the most important pieces of the story forward. So we're not trying to
Yeah.
tell the audience about how the teenager is not trying not to be like his father in these types of pieces. Now, maybe you have that in the stakes before he becomes yet another, rather than, because your stakes are also vague, right? This is also not clear. So it might be something like before he becomes yet another version of his father, could be the stakes. And now we're
Yeah.
clarifying the stakes. This is a big thing to think about in regards to your characters being goals and stakes and inciting incidents in a way, right? In the sense that the goal of your story can be to separate certain characters from another character. That's kind of what we have here. And the stakes can also be not becoming another character, right? So right now, the reason that the goal and the stakes are feeling so vague is we're not seeing their direct relationship to a clear event or character specifically. So maybe you have a version of this logline that could play like this. Let me just you could have when a teenager, and you could still probably work on this when a teenager. Like, what is it about this particular teenager that is special, that is unique, that is interesting, but is caught up in the nasty, or in his, I would say, in his parents' nasty divorce. He must remove his father, from the family. It's not the best way to say that, but before he becomes yet another version of him. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a little bit better, but it's still not quite there. So are you wanting the story to have um a like larger concept of some kind, or is this a straight family drama?
Yeah, like how do you mean by a larger concept? Do you mean like what it's trying to say and the philosophical conflict of it, or what do you mean
I'm saying
exactly?
in the physical world of the story. Like, is this physical world of this story some characters in 2023, lit life in a normal house going through a familial breakup?
Yeah, no, that's really like the backdrop of it. What I have in mind is just our protagonist and how this and the turmoil this causes like affects his life in terms of his relationships, like with his friends, for example, how sometimes like drives him to like commit acts that aren't really appropriate in such a situation or gets him in trouble just for the sake of yeah like shying away from this situation or trying to shy away from what his father is. So yeah, this is basically the premise, but what it's about is really how it affects the protagonist's life as he is learning his lesson, basically. You know what I mean?
So, what is the so is this a coming of age story where the character is having things happen to them and we watch them experience things happening to them?
What do you mean things happening to them? Like
Like,
he is an active like the inciting incident, and yeah, I don't know what you mean really. Can you explain
no,
that?
go ahead. What's the inciting incident?
Yeah, the inciting incident is that he gets caught. Like how the story starts is we set up the protagonist's world. He is like a normal teenager. He's a bit disconnected from the people around him, but it's nothing too big. And he really likes his father. He sees his father as like the idol he wants to become in terms of like life and his job, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is some days is she tells him these things about his father that he's been doing for the last like years, and that he's been cheating and basically doing all these things behind the scenes that the protagonist isn't really aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And then so everything the protagonist knew about like his perspective on life and how his perspective on what he wanted to be like just falls down because yeah, his idol is broken down. It's not only that, he has to fight his father to basically bring his little sister and his mother to safety from that man. You know what I mean? So that's what
Mm-hmm.
the story is about. Yeah.
And is that the whole story or is that the beginning?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why it seemed like I need something to tie it up. I know that's not. I have a feeling that it's just not enough to feel like a feature film.
Well, I think this is
Uh,
the issue, right? Like the issue is shown in the log line here, which is that we don't know what he actually wants other than to survive the situation, right? You are saying navigate the situation here, and you're essentially saying kind of, vibe through it, right? Versus, is there a clear, tangible goal that now that there has been this shedding of his father's worldview, or like that he can now go and do something else, or that that he is trying to achieve something in the sense that he's trying to move his family to a new place, or he's trying to take care of his family, or he's trying to go on his own adventure or something like this. The problem right now is your character is not active. They are still lost. And I
yeah. So
get
you mean I have to like actually externalize this conflict going on inside him basically into the physical world and then put that into the log line. That's what you're saying, right?
that is exactly what I'm saying. That is
Yeah,
exactly
I'm
what I'm
starting to
saying.
understand it now.
Yeah. Because the reality is, right, you're making a story, and a story is infinitely okay. If you were going to write an essay about your thoughts and feelings, or if you were going to write a thing about just your thoughts and feelings and not the external world, then an essay or a think piece or a diary entry is the way to do that. But if you want to tell a story, what you are doing when you are telling a story is you are taking the thoughts and the emotional experiences of the character and you are bringing all of that out into the real world, right? And so if your character is frustrated because of their father and because of their father's actions, how do we externalize that frustration? How do we show a reaction against his father? How do we show an external goal that is created to hurt his father or to get away from him or to remove the family from him or to attack his father through the legal system, right? Like, what action is taken? How are we externalizing the story? I feel like I see so many writers who they are so caught up in their characters' inner thoughts and inner world because they are caught up in their own inner thoughts and inner world at all times, and they're never thinking about the external. They're never thinking about the real world that we exist in. They're always in their own heads, in their own thoughts, and that is ultimately not productive, right? Whether that's in a story or whether that's in your own real life, it's not productive to be in your own head all the time. What is productive is to experiment, test, and go after things in the real world that then legitimize and justify or delegitimize the thoughts and feelings that you are having.
Yeah, I completely understand it now because yeah, I took a quick I even took like a quick look at the document where I had everything like brainstormed, and I had it divided into like emotional conflict, philosophical conflict, and external conflict.
Mm-hmm.
You see, like the emotional and the philosophical conflicts are like two paragraphs basically outlining it, and the external conflict is like two lines
Mm-hmm.
of yeah, to get away from the situation. I need to externalize that more, and then yeah,
You
I have to
need a
think
goal.
about
This is the biggest thing you need to be thinking about right now. You need a goal. What does this teenager want? What are they looking for? Now, this can be simply based on the inciting incident in the sense of the father starts up this nasty divorce starts up, caused by his father, instigated by his mother, and now to the goal could be something very simple like hurt his father through the legal system, right? So then he's hiring, or he's going to divorce court and all this sort of stuff, trying to hurt his father more. Like that's one angle you could take. Another angle is that he's trying to remove his family from this situation. Another is just what does he want as an individual, and is this also a story of this character, this teenager, is interested in someone themselves, and now they're trying to not make the same mistakes that his parents made with this person they're interested in. That's another way you could take this. But I think right now the big thing missing in the story is that tangible external goal. We are doing this, going to this location, finding this person, removing this person from this person, something like that.
yeah, yeah, I understand that. Yeah, so I'll have to think about it, but now I have like a clear line of thought to follow basically. So yeah, that's great, man. Thank you.
For sure. Biggest thing I would say is working on that goal. If you can create a strong goal, like even just brainstorming what could those goals be, that's going to be huge because I think that's really going to set the story on the train tracks to make something legitimate.
Yeah, good, man. Thank you.
For sure. All right. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to see if I can fix some audio problems here. Let's do this. Can I kick this up to like here? And then do this. Check, check, check. Josh, my audio level's good?
You can probably be up a little bit more on YouTube, but on Discord you sound good.
I will push a little bit. Okay. All right. I'm going to move right along. I see a couple other hands raised. I'm going to just keep rolling here. Josh, if you can keep an eye look on both chats, and if you see like something really good, let me know. Daniel, what's going on, man? How are you?
Sorry, one more time. Can you hear me?
I can. What's going on, man? How are you?
My bad. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Doing well.
Yeah, good. I know everyone says this, but I do genuinely appreciate your stuff because before I saw it, I didn't know my butt from my elbow when it came to a story. And once I started watching, it just like became super clear to me. So
Awesome,
that's
man.
cool. I have a bunch of questions because this is the first time I've ever caught a live. I've always tried to. I've watched them for the last years, and I never did. So I have a bunch.
Hit them.
But the first one of them is, I was wondering if my ghost. So I have my character Ghost.
Mhm.
Is I know that you don't always like flashbacks unless they're like, done the right way. But I feel like I think it's essential to show my character's ghost visually for it to have the impact that it has. And I was thinking of a flashback. However, and the flashback comes, I think, page 10 or 15, maybe. However, the flashback ends up being like 7, which I feel like is really long, and it kind of really breaks up the momentum of the story and just kind of makes it feel weird, I feel like. So, number one, I guess, would you recommend even doing a ghost as a flashback? And number two, what I thought maybe would be a fix is putting it at the very beginning of the story and then just doing like a however many years later thing. But I don't know if that's all stupid, but you can tell me what you think.
Yeah, I don't think that's all stupid. What I would say though is I would not be putting that character ghost so early in the story if we're going to do a flashback. So let's go to the board and let's talk about what I mean. So if you're gonna have a flashback for a character ghost, right? So, and you mentioned 7, right?
7 pages?
Or did you mean the movie?
No. The flashback scene or whatever you want to say is like 7 pages.
Okay. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, that is long. Okay. So here's a screenplay. Oops. Whatever. That's Act 2A. Everybody gets it. Everyone gets it. Okay. So there's kind of 4 acts. I break up Act 2A into 2A's. Anyways, if you're going to introduce a character over here, right, and they have a particular belief system, right? We don't need to know their ghost immediately. What we want to do is if we're going to have a effective flashback, the audience should want to know what's going on in that flashback. In other words, they should be asking the question, what happened to this character? Why is this character the way that they are? Before we have that flashback. If you have that right at the very beginning, there's really no reason to do that. I would say it is much more effective to have your ghosts revealed around like this area of your story. Because this is where we're going to be going into the climax over here, right? And this is where finally a character can give their viewpoint of why they are the way that they are. And that can be a flashback. That can be them telling another character the story of their life. Either way, that's all fine. In the movie 7, we get, what's his name? Morgan Freeman's character. I forget the guy's name. But Freeman character in the movie, he has this belief of apathy about the city he's in, right? He doesn't think it's going to get better. He thinks it's just criminals and chaos and it's never going to get any better. We don't understand what formed that belief for most of the story. So we watch him go through this story, hunting down John Smith, finding the victims of the kills, all this stuff, and we do not get Morgan Freeman's ghost until about this point in the story. I don't remember exactly where it is. I think it is at the end of Act 2, around this point here. And so then, only at that point in the story does he sit down with a character and he explains what happened to him in the past, and why he is the way he is, why he has this apathy that we saw at the very beginning of the story. So there is really no reason to be throwing in flashbacks this early in the story, right? Act 1 needs to set up your present world, right? We don't care what happened to the character in the past yet. We want to understand who they are in the present world first. And once we get that sense of who they are and what their belief is, what their worldview is, later on in the story, when it makes sense, when the audience is already asking the question, why does this character believe what they believe? And when maybe other characters are also interested in asking, why do you believe what you believe? Then the ghost can come forward. Another reason the ghost is usually going to come later in the story is that a great way to have a ghost come forth in a particular moment is the characters are trying to make a choice about what to do, right? So you could have, your main character on one side, and then you have some sort of like opposition on the other. Maybe it's an ally of theirs, but they have a disagreement about what choice to make here. And so to argue their side, essentially to argue their belief, because the choice is the expression of the two sides in conflict, and the argument about that is the conflict. This character gives an argument for their side of the choice, and that argument is to reveal their ghost. Does that make sense? So, for example,
Yeah.
Cool. So, for example, in 7, Morgan Freeman is getting ready to, I believe he is like getting ready to leave the city permanently, right? He's not going to come back. He's done with it. That's what he's going to do. And other characters are asking him, like, why? Like, why are you giving up on this city? Because Brad Pitt's character sits on the other side, right? Morgan Freeman is apathetic. Brad Pitt's character sits on the other side. No, we should stay. We should fix things. This can be a good place. Then Morgan Freeman gives this ghost around this point in the story to prove his point, to say, it's not getting better. This is why being apathetic is the way to go, and there's nothing we can do about that. And so then we go into Act 3 with a strong sense of why he believes what he believes, so that when we go into that final climax with John Smith, we understand where Morgan Freeman's head is at.
Okay. So I kind of had it different, and maybe that's where part of my problem is.
Okay.
So I allude to this event that is the character's ghost early, meaning like before the flashback, like it's just alluded, or no. Or I guess what I'm saying is there's a choice that comes up, obviously, like the first major choice that the character has to make. And obviously the decision that the character makes is based on largely the ghost. And so I guess that debate you're talking about happens somewhat around the first choice. So should it not be that way? Because I guess what I mean is clearly she's going to make, my main character is going to make a choice that's somewhat based on the ghost. So how do I still illustrate that that's why she's making the choice without going like too heavily into the ghost? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, we don't have to know exactly why in the very beginning. We just have to understand what the character is going after in the present. This is why the goal is super important, right? And so usually your goal is going to be like here, like where this is going to kind of be your midpoint goal. So your character is starting off over here. They have some sense of, okay, I kind of want to end up in this place here. And so as long as we understand what the character's goal is, and as long as we understand what choice is being made in the scene, we don't have to get the full why. We don't have to get that ghost early. We can just get, okay, the character is making this choice. They're going after what they want. There's something in the past that we don't know about, and we can allude to that even, but I don't think it's worth pausing the momentum of your Act 1 to go all into that. Because also, there's a lot of stuff that has to be done in an Act 1, right? We have to set up all of our key characters. We have to set up our world. We have to set up our character in their viewpoint. We have to set up the goal, and we have to start them on the adventure. There's a lot of things going on here. And if you can wait on the ghost and place the ghost later, it also can become more powerful, because now there are things that the audience wants to know, right? They want to know why the characters are the way they are, but they don't want those questions answered immediately. They want to have them answered at the right time.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense now, because I feel like maybe now I'm seeing that I like essentially used up all of my philosophical ammo, if you want to say it that way.
Yeah.
Like right away, to where it's like when you get to that point later, of course the impact is taken away because you already used it all, but also you just don't really have as much to go on.
Right.
But if you like you're saying, leave, you can allude to it to make more questions rise in the viewer's mind, but really get to the meat of it later. So I think that definitely helps, which kind of, do you think there's time for like one more question?
Yeah, hit me.
Which maybe it is answered a little bit, but I know, so I'm about 60 pages in to my feature, and
fantastic.
Yeah, thanks. I know it's messy, obviously, and I know like there's a ton of problems just because I can tell as I'm writing it. I guess one thing is, so I'm 60 pages in and I'm not at the midpoint yet, which I know it shouldn't be that way because I want it to be sooner.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that the flashback thing probably fixes that somewhat or helps it.
It
But
helps, yeah.
I guess my question is, I know it's messy and I don't always know why, and I know it has problems and I don't always know what they are. And I feel like it's hard to keep going knowing that there's just things that aren't going to work in the end.
Yeah.
So I guess, should I just push through regardless and finish it? And I know that's generally the big picture answer, but like, how much effort should I put into trying to fix those problems before, if that makes sense?
Totally. How many screenplays have you written?
This is the first one.
Okay. So with your very first screenplay, it doesn't matter. And I'm not saying this to sound, I don't want you to feel defeatist. It doesn't matter how many times you go back into those initial 60 pages that you have and move pieces around. It's still going to be full of problems simply because this is your first script. So I would highly suggest you take a little bit of pressure off yourself and say, you know what, it's okay. This is my first screenplay. It doesn't need to be perfect. It's your first draft too. Like, you can go back and you can do fixes, you can do rewrites. I would highly recommend that and I would take that piece, like that ghost piece out. Like, if you have this 7-page ghost, it's like, boom, take that out and put that on the other side, or at least it's going to be kind of how I'm saying here, like it's somewhere around here in the story. Now, great, you have 7 pages, that second half done, but mainly finishing one screenplay that is not perfect is going to teach you so much more than finishing the first 25 pages of 5 different ideas.
Right.
And understanding your ending and understanding how it feels to write from page 1 all the way to the end, and understanding how the story changed and shifted and grew in your mind through the process of writing page 1 to getting all the way to page 100 or 110. That, and the fact that you actually get a sense for what it takes to put 100 pages down. All of that is contributing to your skill as a writer, because there are multiple skills you are teaching yourself at the same time when you are writing in this format. You are teaching yourself storytelling, of course, but you are also teaching yourself how to consistently push through and finish a draft of something, how to be okay with things that aren't perfect immediately, how to take pressure off yourself and not allow pressure to build up inside of you that then forces you to procrastinate, because every time you think about writing your story, you think about how it's not perfect, and that makes you frustrated, and that makes you stressed, and that makes you not want to write. All of these different layers of kind of working on yourself and working on your writing are happening at the same time. And so if you are someone who is at the very beginning stages in the sense of you're writing your first screenplay, I think it's great that you're taking the big swing and writing something long. I highly recommend that over writing a ton of short scripts. That's awesome. I would slam through this one. I would do a post first draft kind of debrief. What do you feel like is working? What do you feel like's not? Big picture. And then at that point, it will be your choice do you want to immediately hop into a rewrite on that? Or do you want to set it to the side and try something new, coming into that new story idea with the lessons that you learned from that old one? But I would highly recommend getting used to pushing the script all the way to the finish line. It is one of the things that no one talks about, but if you look at pro writers, a lot of writers in Hollywood are professional writers, not because they are great writers, but because they finish consistently and they don't halfway write scripts. They actually have 100 pages to turn in when someone gives them an assignment to write a screenplay. And that is half the battle.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That makes a lot of sense. It's like I always hear your videos and I always tell myself to just push through, but then when I sit down and try to push through, like it's so hard to resist the urge to like go back. So it's probably just a bite the bullet and do it thing, put the head down. I guess I have one more quick one that'll probably take like 2 seconds to answer, I hope, if that's all right. Maybe it's obvious, but is it okay for my protagonist want in the initial part of the, like the first part of the story, for her to, like, her main want to be to protect her family? Like, is that a solid enough want? Because I think I watched a video or a stream or something where you said that you don't want a story where it's just a character that things are happening to, or like a character trying to stop, or what, something like that. And so I got worried, like, is her desire to protect her family from harm, bad things happening, is that like a solid enough desire at the beginning?
Are you saying that desire changes after the inciting incident?
No, like that is like the foundational desire of like everything that she does.
Okay.
All her choices and like her beliefs come from, like, her ghost is what fuels that want. And so she is like basically everything she does, whether it comes to home life or the way she interacts with her family and her kids and all of that stuff, all of that is revolving around her desire to protect them. And I guess I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't just making a story about a character that things happen to.
What's your opponent, and what does your opponent want?
So the the antagonist is something that my plan was to have it like hinted at, but it doesn't really come into full realization till later. But so initially the main problem is that I guess I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to take up a bunch of time. But
go for it. No, we're hanging out. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate it. I definitely like this a lot better than just the YouTube chat too, because
Yeah, me too.
I think some questions are just way easier to like say when you're talking.
Totally.
Yeah, so I guess her sorry, I lost my train of thought. Basically, she wants to protect her kids and her family, so she's super like isolationist.
From what?
And to like, sorry?
What is she protecting them from?
So the ghost is that something really horrible happened to her and the whole family, and super traumatic. And so that's the ghost. And so the story would start with her like basically being super isolationist with herself and the family and all of that stuff to prevent any sort of like evil act being taken upon them again. So it's just, I guess, protecting them against the general evil that exists in the world and bad people doing bad things to her. So what pushes her out of that? So the story takes place like in an old time frame. So they kind of like live really remote. So like they don't really leave the house or anything like that. And they're self-sustaining. They like, grow their own food and do all this stuff. So they never have to leave. And she has strict rules basically that the kids can never like pass a certain line, all of this stuff. Doctor comes and visits them, so they never have to go out. Someone they know brings them stuff from towns far away so that they don't have to go. So all to protect, from the ghost, which is, while the last time that they were out, living life like normal, obviously a horrible thing happened. So that's kind of what her goal is, to protect them from other things happening and evil that exists in the world. So what happens is the inciting incident is that her son has like an illness that needs like pretty immediate attention. And so that challenges her desire of getting what she wants, which is to protect her family, because then it means she has to venture on beyond the safe bubble that she has created for herself and her family. And it means risking danger and confronting evil.
Okay.
So
where is she taking her son to?
It would just be, so like they live remote. So it would just be to like a medical facility well, that's the choice she has to take her son to a medical facility that's like far away
Mm-hmm.
so he can get care.
Okay. And so that's what she goes after, is taking him there?
Well, and maybe this is a issue too. My initial plan was that her husband would agree that they should, and she disagreed because of her ghost and just what happened to her and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they have like a debate and whatnot, and ultimately he agrees that they won't, and so she kind of adapts and tries to adapt on her own, doing all these other things to try and help him and fix him and all of that stuff. And then my initial plan was that the midpoint, the son dies.
And are they still
And
at the house at that point?
yes, so the kid gets worse. She doubles down. The father obviously like super disagrees, but she gets like super militant about her desire. And that's kind of the point, is that she goes so far at trying to protect that it ends up like kind of harming other people. So then the son ends up dying because she wasn't willing to go. And then I guess my big unexpected problem, which this is just what I had
Sure.
planned, is that I don't know exactly the exact fine details, but that her husband would something would happen to him. I don't have all the details, and it's a little too long to get into, but he would somehow be in danger outside of the walls of their home.
Mm-hmm.
And her final choice, or not one her final choice, but one of them that kind of propels you into the third act as like the unexpected problem, would be that now she has a chance to make the choice again if she can go and do what it takes to save or help him.
Okay.
And that's kind of where I had the full circle moment coming, where she, at the midpoint, she recognized that her beliefs were wrong and she was smacked with the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And that at the third act, she has a chance to make a better choice, and what I believe is the correct one, going to save her husband.
Okay. Cool. So here's what I would say about what you've got so far. Okay, so some of this can be dependent on the story that you're making. My first point of discussion is this as our antagonistic force. I think the weakest part of the idea overall is that there is no physical human being that is the antagonist.
Okay, could I elaborate really quick?
Sure.
I probably should have said it because I guess it's a main part of the story, but I felt like I have so many rabbit holes that I don't really get to them very easily. So my plan, and maybe it's honestly probably, since it's my first time and everything, I'm probably not as clear as I should be on it, so it's probably a little jumbled with what I'm trying to go for.
Of course.
But I got to embrace the suck.
Yeah.
So basically my plan, so what inspired the story, I guess you could say, is that I'm like a Christian and everything. So there was a Bible verse that says, be sober, be vigilant, for the enemy, the devil prowls around like a lion seeking whom he may devour.
Mm-hmm.
And the overall philosophical conflict is, I guess, what you should do with the problem of evil, how it should be dealt with. So the main character, her view is that if you just hide enough and shelter yourself enough and close yourself off and pretend that it doesn't exist, that it can't get you, and that's the best way to deal with it, and that you'll be safe as long as you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth, I guess, the alternative viewpoint that I want to express, that I believe is true, is that evil will always exist, and it is inevitable in some sense that at some point in your life it will come to your life and your front door, and that you will experience it, and that there's not much you can do about that except for not being overcome by evil, but overcoming evil with good. So that's kind of my main thing. So what I wanted to do was kind of illustrate that evil in itself obviously like comes from like the devil and stuff like that. So I wanted to have a representation of evil that was supposed to it wouldn't explicitly say it's the devil, but it would be kind of like that's what's gathered.
Mm-hmm.
So I did have that as a physical manifestation that I probably should have said before. But I guess my plan is to not go, or I guess I'm in a lot of detail. But
Is that a person?
what I want,
is the devil a
what's that?
person in the story?
So I wanted it to be more creature-esque. And maybe it'd be better if it was a person. But my plan was that, they're remote and all of this stuff, and that there is. So because of what happened to her, she has this like looming sense of darkness that kind of shrouds around her because of it, because of the evil that was done to her.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to kind of give this vibe that there's some sort of just darkness looming, and it would be kind of hinted at and stuff like that. But it's not really the focus, because the focus at first is the choices she has to make about, taking her son to get treatment or whatever. And she's, of course, afraid of anything beyond their house because of the evil. So she's afraid of evil more than she is just of a specific person doing a specific thing. So
here's what I would say, though. And,
yeah.
and this is to everybody listening on this stream and in the Discord, because I think this is a very, very, very important point that I want to get across, is that a person is always the scariest possible thing, and a person acting is the best expression of a particular viewpoint, right? So I think you are creating essentially a devil. And, maybe you don't do it in this story. I know you have written a lot of this already, but I would highly, highly suggest making the devil a person, and not even in the sense of this character is a creature, or like they have black eyes, or any of this, or even that they're like, truly demonic, but that this character is the representation of evil walking in your story. Because here's the reality, right? Animals are not anywhere near as scary as people, even creatures, these kinds of things. The most dangerous thing that exists, to our knowledge, is other people. And that's why, and we are people ourselves, and having viewpoints, ideas, beliefs embodied in human flesh is what makes them so powerful. You were mentioning that you were a Christian, and the story of Jesus is what? The story of Jesus is the story of God embodying himself in flesh and essentially becoming a walking, talking, philosophical viewpoint of God, right? Yeah. And so part of the reason that the Jesus story has been arguably the most powerful and most impactful story in human history is because of that idea. The idea of Jesus is the embodiment of God. So, coming back to your story a bit, embodying darkness, embodying evil in the form of a person, in the form of an antagonist that can actually act and create specific actions and create specific problems that the character has to deal with and has to make choices about, is going to be much stronger than having a general abstract force or a creature that is not fully human. I think that is likely to be, like, if I was going to make one fundamental change in your whole story, it would be only to add a physical human being as your antagonist, as the physical representation of the devil in your story.
Okay. Yeah, so one thing I was playing around with, maybe this isn't what you're talking about, but I was considering the idea of the, force of darkness, so to speak, to be generally vague, not vague. That's not the correct word. I guess you could consider it more of like an underscore, whereas the main conflict at the moment would be the sick son and all of that stuff.
A great thing you could do, you have this son who has an illness. This person created that illness. So if
Well,
you wanted to
okay,
make them a
so
little mystical, that's a great way to do it, right? Because now they are the force again. They are the inciting incident, right? Your
right.
inciting incident is a character rather than natural happenstance.
So I actually was going to do that.
Mm.
It was going to be sort of hidden until maybe the midpoint or maybe a little after, once the new problem arises,
Okay.
that the cause of the sickness was this evil that, and it would be underscoring the fact that evil is inevitable. Even if you hide yourself in your house, it'll come to you eventually. And so my thought would be that the force of evil would be sort of detached from the sickness for a long time until it kind of like converts. And what I wanted to do was, so basically they have one neighbor that is like a family friend,
Mm-hmm.
kind of, and he lives like maybe a few like acres or whatever you want to say away. And so he knows them well. He's the only person that they trust. And so the whole force of darkness creature, would just be sort of like there. That's, you're not really sure what it's doing necessarily. Um, but it's there and she's afraid of it, blah, blah, blah. And then the midpoint would be, the son dies. And then I don't know exactly how, but it would be revealed that the sickness is what caused it. And then I was playing with the idea that the neighbor ended up being the creature. And the reason being because it would underscore the idea that evil was always there from the start. And that's kind of the truth about life that I feel, is that it's always there no matter whether you think it is or not. And the very problem that she thought that she was trying to protect her son from by, whatever, was already there, causing the new problem. And the friend neighbor's belief would be illustrated beforehand through his ghost, or whatever you want to say, the one
Mm-hmm.
who ends up being the monster or
Mm-hmm.
the creature or whatever, was that evil is inevitable, but like a negative version of it, in that no matter how good you try to be, or how much you try to overcome it with good, or how moral you try to live your life, or how much you try to protect it, that it will always win. So not just that it's always existing, but that it'll always win and beat out good. And that basically the wage that a good person earns is just being defeated by evil because they're stronger and they don't play by the rules, blah, blah, blah. So that would be his belief set up before,
Mm-hmm.
that then would come to a head when you realize he was the person or monster, whatever you want to say, doing it the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
That way it would kind of like make sense why he believed that. So I don't know if that's me trying to do too much or what, but that's kind of what I was thinking. Is that kind of what you're referring to a little bit?
Somewhat. I'm just a big believer in making that antagonist a person and making that person be the reason for the problems that we see in the story.
Right.
It doesn't have to be for every single problem, but I think having, evil will find you, but you can overcome it. This sort of idea that you want to discuss in the story, that finding you, this is kind of a personification idea, right? Evil finds
Right.
you. What finds you? Well, a person finds you, right? We are the soulful creatures on the planet, right? So, embodying evil in a person, I think, is the best thing that you could do for this story right now.
Yeah. All right. I definitely appreciate it, a million times more than I do. So I'm definitely going to take a look at it and see if I can do that, because the thing she was afraid of was another person. But still, you are true that humans are the scariest thing. So I'll look into that. But I do really appreciate taking all the time. I'll let some other people answer, but I really appreciate it.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
I got some questions from the YouTube chat.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take a couple questions from the YouTube chat before we keep going. I see a couple guys in the Discord here.
That's good. So from Rhodes Film Company, how should I navigate finding films in my genre?
How should I navigate finding films in my genre? What do you mean? What does he mean?
He didn't specify what genre.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about that one. I'm gonna move this. I'm gonna go ahead and take another question here. If you want to copy good question that you see and then put them back in the YouTube chat from you, I'll like look for your name. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm going to go to Spencer here. I see him in the Discord.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can. What's going on, man?
Wonderful. Hey, so Christmas is coming up, and I'm gonna finally see my twin brother, who I haven't seen all year. So excited for that, but also
Nice.
excited because he also is a writer, and he's just finished a screenplay, and I'm excited to read that with him.
Sweet.
But the genre that falls into is like it's like a ensemble hangout movie,
Okay.
and that's just something that I'm just curious what you would look for in something like that because uh, I know that many different movies you could consider ensemble pieces like Lord of the Rings, but there is a clear-cut protagonist like Frodo because he's the hero embarking on the hero's journey narrative.
Right.
But this is, I assume, something more along the lines of like Dazed and Confused or American Graffiti, or I'm reading right now A Midsummer Night's Dream, and that's something that I don't know if you've read that or seen a play of it. But in these kinds of narratives that are a little bit more sprawling in terms of character, do you look at them differently, or do you kind of hold them to the same sort of framework that you would any other story?
So I'm a big believer that there is some sort of key character we're following that becomes our protagonist, and that the reason that is helpful to keep to that like general structure is because it allows more organization on what's happening in the story.
Right.
So if I was gonna do something like setting up a story to have many characters, maybe a bit of a looser plot, but there's still a thematic through line here and some sort of goal. I still think that no matter what, I am always going to push for some sort of goal happening, because without some sort of goal, it's very hard to have a character arc. We're still going to have character choices. So we're still going to have like normal scenes in that sense. And then I think there is going to be at least one primary character that we are most clearly following, even if we're more in their point of view, or they are just the pivotal mover of what's going on. But that is going to exist. Also, when you're creating this web of characters, okay, there is kind of two big pieces to building a story in my view. There is what I kind of talk about, like setting up the chess pieces, right? Of like who's where, what's going on. And then there is the chess pieces in motion, which is like your structure, and then like actually what's happening in each of your acts and this kind of thing. So if we're looking at a story, I think that no matter the story type, whether it's a smaller anti-plot film, whether it is an ensemble cast where there's not one very, very strong primary character like a Frodo, you are still going to have a few important things, and if you don't have these things, your story does not work. You are going to have some sort of philosophical conflict.
Yes.
Which essentially means you're going to have two sides, right? Viewpoint 1 versus viewpoint 2. That is manifesting into sort of two sides. This is the black chess pieces versus the white chess pieces, and setting up our chess pieces. Now we have our character web, which is always going to be there. And we are going to have our basic like concept. And then this is a little bit more kind of chess pieces in motion, but I think it is important to understand some sort of like goal. Whoops, that looks ugly. It's a little bit more in the chess pieces in motion side, so I'll put that over here. But these three pieces right here, right, are going to exist in all good stories, period, no matter what, no exceptions, right? If there's not a meaningful conflict, a character web where characters are falling into different points of views on that meaningful conflict, and then a concept, which is the external world showing this philosophical conflict as well, then you're not going to have something that is kind of interesting, right? From here, right, once you have these basic building blocks, okay, I've got Star Wars. And so Star Wars is essentially the big machine versus the rebels, right? And so the sort of the philosophical conflict here is, kind of, well, using the force, that kind of thing, but also living free, being outside of the system versus forcibly being inside the big empire system. And then you have a character web of characters that fall in different areas on that, right? Some of them are rebels, some of them are empire, some of them want to be rebels that are empire, some of them want to be empire that are rebels, and we have this gray area. And then the concept is obviously empire versus rebels, right? These two clear sides in this sci-fi universe that are against each other. Now, when you are going to actually putting the story in motion, one of the big things, like this is where your story circle structure comes in, if you want to go in that direction. Now, the reason I like story circle structure, especially on the act level, right, like putting circles, one circle per act, like so, is because it gives you such a strong foundation to make a story that's interesting. Now, fundamentally, to have a story that actually usefully uses these pieces, whether or not you want to follow a particular structural format, you have to have character choices in scenes, right?
Right.
To have character choices in scenes, you're going to have some sort of problem, because a choice is a solution to a problem. And if you're going to have problems, you're probably going to have some sort of goal. Now, that goal doesn't have to be take the ring to Mordor. The goal can be, I want to date this one girl who's in this ensemble cast, or I want to make amends with my old cousin who has been angry at me for 5 years, who is now part of this ensemble cast of characters, right? That is still a goal. A character can also be a goal, and a lot of times you can see that in ensemble casts where character relationships are a goal, essentially, right? I want to have this particular relationship with a character. I want to be in a relationship with them, or I want to fix the relationship with my father, or form a friendship with this person, or cut this person off, or something like this, right? If you don't have tangible outside goals, like I want to conquer the country or build the building, a lot of the goals become people-based, right? And relational-based. And you can still do that, but that's still a goal. And understanding that that's a goal will help build problems and will help build character choices in scenes. And those character choices in scenes are the expression of the philosophical conflict being battled out. So, like, what I would say is, you can tell a story that is not jumping straight into the structural view first. I know I've talked a lot about structure, and I know that a lot of like screenwriter guru people talk a lot about structure, but it is not the foundation. It's not the absolute foundation of a story. I would say the absolute foundation of a story is philosophical conflict and character choices, which means character web, which also means problems, which also means goal. And now suddenly we kind of have a structure anyways. It's like, I feel like the more you study story, the more you realize that a lot of the pieces exist no matter how you're organizing it, and just about where are you jumping in, where's your starting point. Because you can start with an ensemble cast and start with a character web, and very quickly you're going to be looking for problems so that you can have interesting scenes. And if you have problems, you're going to be looking for goals. And if you're looking for goals, well, now you can structure it out, because now you can say, okay, well, my 5 is my goal. And then I've got a character who wants something, who encounters a problem, who makes a choice to get their goal, who gets the goal, who encounters a surprise problem at the 6, who makes a final climactic choice at the 7, and now they're changed. And then suddenly, oh, wow, we actually have a story structure.
Right. And yeah, like for me, I am more of my sensibilities are more structure based. I do find your videos found the matter to be very helpful. My brother's tastes align more with like Boyhood, which
Sure.
is not. So, but yeah, thank you. That's very helpful. I was wanting to move on to something that is more about my writing, which is
Sure.
more structure based. So right, I've had an idea for this for like 7 years. I've been aggressive about trying to get it down for the last year. It started off as a short, expanding it to a feature because why not?
Yeah.
So the so it is a romantic drama, or it's a romance movie. It's a drama. The log line is when a photographer, sorry, uh, let's see. In an effort to save their marriage, a photographer recalls their young love after his wife proposes a divorce on their wedding anniversary. Um,
Can you type that into the Discord chat real fast, and I can bring it into here?
yeah, for sure.
Let me snag this. All right. Yeah, because it's good to work from a log line if you have one. It's always helpful to get a quick sense of the story. And for those of you who haven't seen my log line video, it's like the second latest video I've uploaded. So give it a watch. All right.
All right.
Got it. Let me toss this in. Okay. All right. There we go. Okay, so in an effort to save their marriage, a photographer recalls their young love after his wife proposes divorce on their anniversary. So, main character, inciting incident, goal, and stakes, which are the key 4 pieces to the logline. So you currently have a photographer. The inciting incident is, I wish it wasn't doing that. Okay. Inciting incident is his wife proposes divorce on their anniversary. And then the stakes are essentially in an effort to save their marriage. So to me, it feels like you have recalls their young love in place where a story goal should be.
Okay. And this then I guess goes into the my question with it is that I've been kind of wrestling with is that so I found like you said I remember years ago at this point you said that constant flashbacks in stories just aren't useful. They need to be the character needs to or sorry the audience needs to want it. And especially this last year, I would agree. I just recently watched the new Godzilla movie, and there is a flashback towards the end that completely guts the third act of any drama. Uh, but it's a 10 out of 10, I guess everyone says. So, uh, anyways, but what is like the difference between, and maybe it's not a binary, but uh, flashbacks versus framing devices. So the meat of the story is like the story of when they first started dating.
Okay.
And it's essentially you're going to be comparing where they're at on their anniversary versus the meat of the story. But then I feel like that makes the log line feel disingenuous because I'm describing a framing device and not the meat of the story. However, so much of what the meat of the story is predicated on is what it is being compared to.
Yes, I understand. That framing. So what stage are you at in this? Have you written this yet, or are you in the outlining phase? Where are you at on it?
So I wrote 100 pages the beginning of this year.
Okay.
I got to
Fantastic.
the midpoint, and it was terrible, to put it conservatively. And so I decided to. I've made a lot of rearranging. Like the main character wasn't a photographer in the beginning; he was a musician because, spoiler alert, it's autobiographical. And
Hmm.
so I'm a musician, but so much of the story I realized, okay, well, it's about how our main character views views his wife. So it needs to be about what's something external, well, photographs, and that's sentimental. So like
Hmm.
the way he views her can now be represented in photos. Uh, I decided to be like, okay, well, he's lonely. In real life, I have brothers, so the character had brothers. That's not useful when you're trying to portray a character as lonely. He shouldn't have friends and brothers that he can talk to about this stuff. I don't think, or at least it made it with the way it was written.
Hmm.
It wasn't as clear. So I've gutted it, and I've started from scratch, and I'm on page like 30 now. But yeah, I had only gotten to the midpoint previously,
Okay.
which is not good because 100 pages.
Is the reason for telling this story? So, what is to your mind, the theme or the philosophical conflict or the argument that you're trying to make? If you had to make a thesis statement for this film and saying, this is what I am trying to make, this is what I'm trying to express to people through this story, what do you think that would be?
Uh, the conflict is love is a choice versus love is a feeling. Um, the the proposed divorce comes the from the wife saying, "Well, I don't feel in love anymore," and the photographer says, "Like, what are you talking about? We decided that we were going to love each other. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we made an action, we made a vow, we made a promise." So, uh, and then ultimately the philosophical conflict. I think that love is a choice, and then ultimately it's if uh, love is lost, which it ultimately is, then you can choose to love again, or you can choose to not love somebody if it is unrequited.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that's very good. I think this is a very clear, strong two sides here. This love is a choice versus love is a feeling. And I also understand how you would want to portray this particular conflict through the beginning of the relationship and the end of that relationship and what the differences between the two were. Um,
And yeah, and then of course to get like gender roles assigned to it in Western civilization, at least every civilization I know of, actually, it's like it is expected for men to take action. It is
mhm.
expected for men to the women, and then women just have to feel. It's almost like it's predicated on the women feeling that love in action in their own feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So
So,
I don't know. I think that it is a valuable story because it's more far-reaching than just being a 20-something who's sad that nobody loves him, you know?
right, right. Yeah. No, I like this. I like the basis of this idea. I think now it just comes into, okay, like, because now you have a story with two major timelines, but you want them getting together in the past to be the main story we're following, or are you trying to have both of them? Because it's kind of interesting. I feel like you could really do it. You could really go both ways. Hmm.
Right, yeah. And so like I have a version that I have where like there's a cold open, you get a title sequence, and then I have it where you can start off where it's them being young and they're getting to know each other, and then around the time he works up the nerve to ask her out, it jumps ahead into the future, but then it's not really the future is now no longer the framing device.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then or the other version is, cold open title, and then it's them on their wedding anniversary. You see him kind of leaving work early,
Mm-hmm.
picks her up, they go out, and then they're having a discussion over dinner, and then that's when she is sort of like, well, I don't know if I'm in love with you anymore. And he's like, what does that even mean? Like, tonight? Like, what? And then they kind of go back to the beginning.
Right.
And I feel like that second one just is more cinematic in terms of the outlet that's being used, but it then comes with it some questions to where you are now like the audience is ultimately, I feel like, could then be stumped by being, well, I already know that these people get together ultimately, even though the goal is for them to be like, okay, well, now that I know one person feels love as an action and one person feels that love is a choice, I can now watch that through the lens of them getting together.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal, but I just don't know what is ultimately going to keep the audience engaged.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of so. Okay. So, okay. I'm going to, from a structural standpoint here, let's just talk about that first. Cause there's a lot of ways you could do this. And some of them may be more complicated than others. I feel like it doesn't, my initial reaction is that making the story like this to this whole middle section is essentially like the past, and then we have like bookends of the future, right? That's kind of one way to do it, right? Is that kind of what you're talking
Right.
about?
Not exactly, but that is, I mean, it is bookended, but it is check in around the major story beats with them.
Right.
Like the midpoint, like uh, so like the mid, so okay, like I feel like the clear Act One goal is Neil, that's the protagonist. He wants to get with Ryan, that's the antagonist, and they ultimately do get together. And then the Act Two goal is, well, she's going to be going back to school. So there's a ticking clock there. And then by the midpoint, she breaks up with him to go back to college. So there is then kind of like, like this is where I'm also playing with this idea. I don't know if I'm, okay. I feel like this is where I get the most stickiness, where I feel like the midpoint reversal is that all of the stuff in the future isn't real, actually. Um, it's essentially a dream, like it's a dream world where he's so broken up that she left him. He just sort of imagines a world where they're together, and then I'm
I would
starting to feel
avoid,
like that doesn't work.
yeah. I would avoid any and all dream-based storytelling as much as humanly possible, because it breaks the whole stakes of your story. Dreams and memory-based stuff almost never works. 99% of the time doesn't work. However, okay, let me throw you a wild version that maybe you could go with.
Please.
So maybe you do something like this. Now, there's a lot of details to this that would be on you to figure out. But let me just throw you this idea. So one thing you could do, we have this love as a choice versus love as a feeling kind of piece. And to me, it feels like that love is a feeling seems to kind of equal your past world, right? And so and then you have this love as a choice seems to equal the present world on some level, right? Because in the past, what you're showing the anxiety and the emotion and like, oh my gosh, this is a new person. I'm interested in them. I'm got to go talk to this girl. We have a first date. I'm going to propose, all these different things. And then in the present, where they're breaking up, it's kind of like, wait, we made a choice. Aren't we continuing with that choice? And it's less about the feelings. Maybe, just maybe, you did a version where the acts were actually split structurally. And again, I'm not even sure if this would work, where essentially you've got part one of the act, essentially up to your midpoint, like 5 in the act, which would be a story circle term. Let me know if you're confused about that. But essentially the first half is, okay, cool. The first half is in the past, where we're getting all these great feelings, right? Then essentially the 6 is we go to the present to see now the divorce is happening. right? And so then you could almost split the acts like this, where we go into the past in the beginning and like the continue forward of like the great things that are happening in the past, and then each time we have that go through, each of these are met with essentially a 6 on the other side. That then brings us into the present of like, okay, and this is what happened in the present, and you could have them essentially mirror each other to a certain extent. So you could figure out, okay, what is it in the past where we're going with the feelings, why the feelings were so great, blah blah blah, make progress, and now it's like, now the 7s are essentially all about like, are we going to survive or not? You could do something like that where you're actually building the entire, you are really doing a dual timeline story where you would, and this would be pretty advanced to do. So like, it would not be an easy task, but
Yeah.
but essentially doing something like this where you have a setup of the past, and then you have like essentially the negation of that moment in the present, and you almost have this this kind of back and forth that way. And so then your present would be like 7 here, I think, would maybe be like, so then the story, and I'm not trying to totally write your story for you, but in the
For sure, no. I mean, we're spitballing, right?
yeah. The past might be something like, okay, they get together for the first time, right? This is like, we see them getting together for the first time. Then maybe you have in the present, this initial thing happen is not the full-on divorce yet, but we essentially see some level of dissatisfaction, and that they are, let's say our protagonist is trying to reignite what happened this first time they met to handle the dissatisfaction that they're currently feeling in the story. So let's say he got her roses in the first time they met or something. And so then, or they went to a particular, cafe or something. And so now we come into this present act where he's bringing her back to like the same cafe, and like it, she goes along with it, but it doesn't feel the same, right? So then we kind of just set up, okay, dissatisfaction, this is how it used to be. Then Act 2A would be, okay, now we're back in the past. Now it's like, oh, they're fully dating, life is awesome, and we're doing picnics in the prairie and all the whole 9 yards. Now we go back to the present, and this is where divorce papers are given. Right? So what we're doing here is the midpoint, and the midpoint is going to be, the emphasis of the Act 2 is going to be on the 6 of that Act 2. So like in Act 1, the 3 is our inciting incident. That's usually the biggest moment in Act 1. It's like the defining element of Act 1. Act 2A is going to be the 6. Your midpoint is usually going to be a big loss so that your climax can be the big win, right? Unless that doesn't happen in your story. But essentially, if we have a big L here, we're going to have a big W here. If we have a big W here, we're going to have a big L here, right? Hopefully that makes sense. So then now, oh my gosh, divorce papers have been presented. Everything is bad. World ends. Then we go back to the past again. I don't know. This is where it's tricky. Not quite sure what would happen there. But I think something good happens here, and then we essentially do the same thing twice. So this is also where Act 1 is our setup act. Act 2A is also our setup act. Act 2B is our setup act. Act 2A is a climax, because the midpoint is a climax of the first story. Act 3 is also a climax act, right? So what we can do is we can say, okay, well, what do I put in this 2B? Well, I'm going to go look at what I have in my Act 1 to kind of fill it in. So you might have something where, I mean, you could have some sort of flip. Wow, that would be complicated. Where then you flip them, and then this one is like they make a choice to stay together, dealing with some hardship back here. That would actually be interesting. So you could show your 4, because this is going to be your 4 is going to be the big beat here of like, we had a huge loss in the midpoint, but I'm going to stay strong. I'm going to figure it out. And then you're still going to have another loss at the end. So you can have that big W here. But maybe you have in the past, they actually handle some hardship, right? So we actually see them handle some hardship. and we watch them maybe make the choice here to stay together, right? Kind of leaning away a little bit from the feelings into the choice. And then maybe in the present, what our main character is doing is, again, bringing up this thing that happened. And so it's like, hey, like, you remember back then when we ran out of money and you know, we thought we were going to break up, and, you know, we had all these fights and blah, 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 but we made the choice to stick together. And you could also have like some sort of object here, right? Like, you know, like a ring, or, you know, like maybe this is the proposal, right? Like maybe you actually have their initial proposal that happens here. So you have first meeting, dating, 2A, proposal here. So then in the present, you know, in that proposal is a choice, but also a choice with feeling. Now in the present, it's like reigniting that again, being like, you remember this choice that was also based on feeling, like, you remember what we did here? And maybe even in the present, if we're going with the idea that this protagonist is taking his wife to the places of the past, maybe they go to the place where he proposed, and we have this kind of like, you know, like, do you remember this? Do you remember where we were? Like, we are still those people. We can still be those people. And she's essentially saying no. Another big loss. Right? Nope, it doesn't work. It won't work. You can't, it doesn't matter again. So then Act 3, I'm not 100% sure what would be going in the past point off the top of my head. But then the present, now this comes down to how the story ends and what ultimately you're trying to say thematically. Because if you have it where, you know, I mean, they can either stay together and figure out, and then, you know, highlighting that, yes, love is a choice. Here's what I would say. If they stay together, you are leaning more towards love is a choice. If they break up, the story is leaning more towards love is a feeling, right? Because it was for at least one of them, and it wasn't fully a choice. Now, I don't know if you want to give them the win, or give your character like the win of, oh, they figured this out, they are able to keep their relationship together, or not. I'm interested to hear what you think about what I've laid out for you.
Okay, so this is interesting. So one of my favorite movies of the last few years was the Little Women movie from 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that?
Yes.
Cool. So this is reminding me of that.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah. So comparing this to what I kind of have, because for me, it's like, it's not that the second half of what is in my mind is a complete void.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know what I want to accomplish with it. It's just the events aren't as, they're not as concrete.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I would like, because our protagonist is a photographer early on, like the first date is they go to the beach because his car's broken down. And so she gives him a ride to the beach to take pictures of some girl for like her senior photos or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then that sort of like friendly favor kind of turns into a date while they're at the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is kind of a point for love as a feeling, because they didn't decide to make it a date. It just sort of happened.
Right.
However, then eventually it does have to become a relationship. So point for choice. But then as I have it now, it's like, okay, midpoint, there's a breakup. But then it kind of goes ahead a couple of years. So like this one girl that he took pictures of for high school, she's now like out of high school, and then like and he's like down to the dumps, and they like hook up. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, and that's kind of conflicting because he made the choice to like try to move on, but it's also sort of doesn't really go anywhere because he's still slave to his feelings. And I feel like that is where like a lot of these problems become, why this becomes problematic in the screenplays, because so many of the things feel like they're contradicting, and like the choices aren't as clear. It's almost like everything comes with a little bit of both, which I think is true to life, but it's not as effective when you're writing out a story.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think, like, you know, like something like that you've written, it's like, it's about writing truth. So like, that's where I'm conflicted.
In the sense that you're conflicted in the sense that your main character is, whether or not he is like making choices based off feeling or Like, is that what you're saying? Like, you mentioned that he's a
Yeah.
slave to his feelings. Can you elaborate on that to me?
Yes. Okay. So he makes it's like he so at a certain point he says that he is in love with Ryan, and she can't can't bring herself to feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
So he has decided that he is in love with her. Um, and so it's almost like now he can't go back on that decision. He tries to move on, but he feels in his heart that he's already decided that he's in love with her. So would moving on be breaking that choice that he has already kind of set for himself?
And that's in the past?
Yes.
So here's what I would say. I think this is where you need to decide what's going on in the past versus what's going on in the present, because now it feels like we're going back to confusion, where
Right.
if you have the past be about them being up and down, about are they together, are they not, all of this, it's like now you're just sort of making a memoir versus going through this idea of like, okay, there was past, like, because what I'm kind of laying out here is essentially saying, okay, like, is literally just this, to be like, okay, we're showing the feelings of the past, and now coming forward to say, can we make the choice for love in the present? Showing the feelings of love in the past, showing the choice for love in the present, and essentially doing that multiple times, once per act as we go forward. Now, if you are going in a world where you will now want to make the past more complex, of like, oh, there's a breakup and there's this and that, then I would nix all of what you see in front of you, and I would essentially go back to a one timeline and say, maybe your story is just a large story that takes place over, the course of like a 5-year time frame, but there is no flashing back or flashing forward. We more or less start with, maybe you do a little bit of bookend, but we more or less start in the past over here and end up at the end of their relationship over here, and we literally just run it through the timeline as they're making choices between these two things. So then the midpoint becomes they get married, and so then we have the first half of the story is them meeting, dating, falling in love. Feelings are awesome. Feelings are great. I love feelings. They're the best. And then maybe, and also it's like maybe some sort of huge problem starts immediately here. And then we go from the second half, which is, okay, can we actually commit to love being a choice? So then it's like your whole timeline just becomes, this is our midpoint. The first half just becomes love equals feeling. Wow, my draw pad is whatever. Love equals feeling. And then the other side is, can we make the choice for love now that things aren't so hunky-dory, right? And that would just be a full-on linear version of it, which I also think would be a good way to do it. It would be less crazy and artistic. This would be very hard to do, though it would be cool. And you could do something like this. And then I would also, we haven't even talked about this at all, but you need a character web for sure. Like, you need more than 2 characters in this story, 100,000 million%. I want to see at least minimum, I think each character will probably have minimum 2 characters that are directly connected to them that can be the voices of choice and feeling. And then on the other side, we've got a voice of choice and a voice of feeling. And then we have main character and antagonist.
For sure. Okay.
Because I know you're talking about like, oh, I want to show my character is lonely, and I get that. However, we can do some of that, but they need to have some level of people to talk to, even if, because like you can say, oh, I'm lonely, and then just not make these people their friends. It's like some guy at a coffee shop they see regularly, and they just, unload their feelings on this person. but we need a way for the character to outlet their ideas in a way where they are challenged by another character, so that we actually have a scene where we are getting the internal thoughts of the main character while also them getting challenged by the other viewpoint, therefore creating a scene with a choice while we are giving exposition of what the character is thinking inside.
Right. Right.
Lots to think about.
Yeah. I appreciate it. And like, yeah, definitely. There's a lot to think about. I think that's all I have. And I greatly appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you came on. Yeah, I'll give you some time to stew on that, and obviously I'm going to do more live streams, so you can come in and let me know about your progress, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, swell. Until next time, then. I'll think on this and come back to you.
Perfect. Until next time, Spencer. Talk soon.
Talk soon.
All right. All right. How are we doing over on the YouTube chat here real quick? I see zeros. I think that's the next person to go up. Zeros, I'm going to get to you in just a second. Hopefully you guys are doing good over in the YouTube chat. What are you guys talking about? Tyler, what do you think about twist endings that are actually new beginnings? I don't know what that means, Tom. Just like for example, Walter White. Once you dress up on the beginning, more interesting. Maybe, Pat. That's possible. Cool. Okay, I'm just going to keep moving. Thank you guys for hopping in and watching the stream as well as being in here. It's always, I'm glad that, like, you guys actually show up for this. We have 50 people watching the stream right now and people inside the Discord, which is super cool. Like, we got like a whole classroom full of people right now, which is crazy. All right, zeros. What's going on?
Hello, can you hear me?
I
Just
can.
fine?
I can.
Yeah, I'm not being too loud, right?
You're great. How are you, man?
Okay. I'm doing fine. I've just completed my first feature-length screenplay.
Fantastic.
It's about I guess it's about 224 pages long.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, maybe I should cut it down a bit, like 50, 60 pages or something.
What do you feel like is making it so long?
I think it tend to do more with my mindset because about 6 months ago I was like a fiction writer, not like a screenwriter like I now doing now. So yeah, so I tend to include line of description of the character and their action, and maybe sometimes I overdoing it.
Okay.
So yeah, so do you have any advice for me when I intend to kind of like cut down my screenplay a bit to make it overall movie feel tighter and more engaging with viewer?
Is this the first screenplay you've written?
Yeah, it's the first screenplay I ever written.
Okay, cool. So there's going to be a few things here. Why do you feel like it is over 200 pages right now? Do you think it is based on the fact that you have written it like a novel and that the actual sentences themselves are written like a novel? Or do you think it is because you are trying to shove a huge story into the space of 100 pages and now you're realizing the size of a screenplay is much different than the size of something like a novel? What do you feel like is the problem?
I think the problem is because before I kind of reading the whole screenplay, I did do like an outline of like about 4 structure act. Actually, it's more like 5 act in total, but yeah, I did kind of outline that events that need to happen for my main character.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I kind of begin writing. I kind of write like about 30 page in the first month. Then I kind of get like writer block and all sort of thing kind of
Well,
push me
let me
down.
let
And
me ask you: do you think the story is over 200 pages because of the structure of your sentences, or because you are shoving a story that is way longer than what a feature should be?
no, I don't think my story is kind of that long. Maybe I
Okay.
could cut down from, yeah, maybe I could like merge scenes together or like cut back a bit on the montage a bit. I think that's also made one of the issue. But yeah,
Well, I think there
um,
are if you have something that is that long, there are very likely elements that are fundamentally incorrect. So, and what I mean is either you have a story that is super long-winded and meanders and goes in a lot of directions, that's possible. Or you have something that is or you have something that is just not the size of a screenplay, because a screenplay really is more of a short story if you really think about it. Like a 2-hour story is very short compared to a novel, which could be a 12 or 15-hour story. So it's likely that you are trying to shove a story that is going to take 5 or 6 hours into a 2-hour time frame, because I don't understand, other than that, how you would end up with over 200 pages.
hmm, just sound pretty interesting. I, do you, do you think when you're writing dialogue between characters, do you like try to limit yourself from adding too much action sentence in the scenes, or do you like should uh, to be honest, I kind of confused on the whole thing like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how much should I keep action sentence? Should I keep it short and sweet, or should I make it clearly to the viewer?
How many screenplays have you read?
I read like about 10 by this point.
Okay, so you've read some screenplays. So what do they do? Are you imitating their dialogue and sentence structure?
Well, well, not really. I just kind
What's
of
different
read
about
it
it?
so I can, yeah. Sometimes they kind of more description with action, and there are certain time where tend to be action when it's kind of like an action screenplay, then the action line they tend to keep it short, like under a paragraph of 4 line or something. That's what I kind of noticed over the time reading other people's screenplay.
Mm-hmm. And are you doing that or not?
Yes, and yeah, I did kind of try doing that, but yeah, but maybe sometime my action line are maybe too long. So I think
How
I could supposedly.
how long are your scenes? Like, and I know that's a hard question to answer immediately, but like I'm just trying to figure out where this length is coming from. Like, because there's only a few things, right? It's not a super complex answer ultimately. Like I don't have the pages in front of me, but either you have scenes that are way too long and you have a story that is of the right size, that it could be 120 pages or 130, but it is 240 because your scenes are all super long, or it is that you have way too much story in your script and you need to have less story and radically condense your acts so that each act can actually be 30 to 40 pages maximum in length.
Hmm, does sound pretty interesting. Um, I do kind of think that, as a fiction writer, I tend to kind of pull thing, kind of make things longer for people to read because after all, I'm writing a screenplay, not like a fiction. So maybe it's partially on me that I kind of made it kind of over unnecessary long on
Mm-hmm.
my part. Yeah, so Yeah, so maybe I should. Do you think I should revise the whole screenplay and try to keep it down, like try to cut like, I don't know, like 50 pages from it?
So I want you to think not in pages and more in the story and what's going to make the story work. Because I don't think
Oh,
you are going to have, like, you might be able to go and just straight up cut some pages in a draft. But to me, I would highly recommend that you go back into your outline. And what I would do if I were you is I would go into each of your acts and say, okay, I've got an act here. I've got act 1, let's say. This has to be maximum 35 to 40 pages. It usually is going to be ideally like 25, especially if you, but act 1's usually a little longer than the other acts. Anyways, I'm going to run with that. So, and then my act structure is essentially a character. You have a character who has a goal, right? Goal established. They want something. Then they're going to encounter the inciting problem. Now, let me pull this out because I think this is going to be worth discussing. Inciting problem. Then they are going to make a choice to solve the problem and get goal, right? So solve the problem of the 3 and get their goal. Then they get the goal. Get goal. They encounter a surprise problem here, which forces them to make a climactic choice in the act. Now, and then this is the change or the new character status quo. Now, you have in a screenplay, in a normal screenplay, you've got about 30 pages to put these 8 story beats, right? If you break that down, it means that if your scenes are about 1 to 3 pages long, let's say they're around 2 pages, that means that you have only about 12 to maybe 16 scenes that can realistically be in a tight act, which means you have 8 beats to express and about 16-ish scenes to express them. So you might have a scene here, maybe you've got a couple scenes here, maybe you got a scene or 2 here, a couple of scenes here. But if you even just give 2 scenes to each beat, which usually it won't happen, it'll actually look more like this. It'll usually go more like you'll have something like, or this section here, this section will usually be where most of the scenes are at. So you might have 9 scenes of this 1 through 4, and then this 5, 6, 7, 8 becomes like 3 to 4 scenes in total, because this is where your climactic drama is happening, which means it's usually happening all at once, and it also will probably have that there. So what I'm saying here is, I think you need to go back and look at your acts. You said you have 5 acts. That's fine to start there, and understand that you only have about 30 pages. And if you're gonna have, most scenes are going to run somewhere between 1 to 3 pages. Some scenes will be half a page. Some scenes might be 5 pages, but they're going to be around 1 to 3 pages, which means you only have about 12 to 16 scenes in here. So you need to figure out, okay, of these like 8 story beats that I have for this act, how do I limit that and make that work with about 15 scenes? And I think that will help you radically reduce the number of scenes in your screenplay.
okay, thanks a lot. I will keep note of that. Thanks, Tyler. Yeah. So I also have another question.
Okay.
Like, um, when I create like a montage, of my main character? Should I like include bad event and good event that happen to them simultaneously in order to create significant emotion to my viewer?
Why do you need a
Or should
montage?
I do well, it's kind of to like convey like information in a like quick manner that's
Mm-hmm.
not over time consuming.
So you're giving
So
exposition through a montage.
yeah,
It's going to be boring.
sometimes it's
E-
gonna be boring.
It's going to be boring. Giving exposition through montages is the main reason people use montages, and it's the main reason that montages are boring. What I would instead try to do is figure out what is that information that you absolutely have to give the audience, and is there a way to give that audience in that information in the present drama of the story rather than doing a montage.
Can you like give me like an example of it?
What is the so give me the important information that we need to know about your character in this montage.
Well, the montage. The whole purpose of the montage is kind of essentially kind of like solidify our main character trust in his friend, sort of, because there are bad events kind of happen around him, like maybe because his parent got divorced and now his mom just like recently passed away, and now he had to like inheritance all of her money at the age of 18, and now he had to kind of be like a main provider for his brother's study abroad because his
Are we
brother
learning
kind of
all of
studied
this in the montage?
well, yeah, kind of. I mean, I
Okay,
could
so
spread
what are
it
we
along.
learning in the montage that the audience needs to know?
Is he having like a hard time with his life and his friend, like his coping mechanism? Like it's kind of allow him to feel like emotionally secure, so he can like keep on living and without feeling kind of like
So you're
depressed
saying
or
so you're
something.
saying we are seeing a coping mechanism of his in this montage?
Yeah,
What is that
yeah.
coping
He's like
mechanism?
his coping mechanism is the fact that for most of his life, he's only can feel kind of loneliness. It stemmed from like his past of being bullying as he was young. So when he kind of grew older, he kind of seek for friends that he could share things with, and generally kind of have conversation to make him feel happy. So in order to make him feel belong to some sort of family, because for the recent time he kind of feel kind of isolation, and he wanted to escape from it, and he see that friends is kind of the only way to escape from that isolation, isolation isolated.
Okay,
So yeah.
I'm not hearing anything that you're telling me that I feel like is worthy of a montage at all, or even necessitating one at all. Like
Really?
I don't feel like you're saying that he has a coping mechanism of hanging out with friends.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes.
that doesn't seem to me to be worthy of a montage.
So should I convey positions through a different means instead of a
To me,
montage?
it's just like he's lonely. We watch him be lonely. We watch him go hang out with his friends. It's two scenes.
Oh, I see, I see. Yeah, that does kind of make more sense anyway.
Sweet.
Yeah.
If you have montages, then you're trying to convey information through those montages. What you are doing is you are exposition dumping in a way that is more flashy than just a character looking at camera and saying things. But it is still exposition dumping. So, if you have a montage, ask yourself, okay, what actually needs to be conveyed here? Could I reduce what I need to tell the audience? What is the information I need to tell the audience, and how do I represent that information in one sentence, right, or one phrase? In your case, he likes to go hang out with friends. Essentially, it's not super crazy. So then it's like, okay, well, great. Well, we will make a scene of that, or make two scenes of that. But it doesn't need to be a montage of 17 events. It just becomes a scene or two, and now you've dropped time in your story, which is great because we've got 1 billion pages. And 2, you are clarifying and being more concise, more specific about the information that you are bringing toward the audience. So I think this is going to be a good exercise for you, Zeros, to go through this script and force yourself to be more concise. Every time in the script that you see a montage, figure out how it can be one scene. Every time that you go through the script and you see repetition in scenes, characters are doing the same thing over and over again, reduce that, take those things out. I think this process of reducing your pages to like under 150, I think is going to be really good for you.
Right. Thanks a lot, Tyler.
For sure.
And I have like a last question.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of related to the lighthearted movie because I think in lighthearted movie the stakes seem to be low. Do you have any suggestion for writer in regard to the decision when including stake for protagonists when they writing that type of movie?
And the type of movie was, well, you said like rom-com?
Yeah,
Ro-
sort of. When the stake kind of low, then how do you kind of like increase the stake to engage with the viewer?
Mm-hmm. So a lot of increasing the stakes is going to come down to what does the character want and why is it important to them? And then understanding what they want and why it's important to them, right? Understanding the character's goal, why they're going after that, and why it's important to them helps you understand what their stakes are. Because then you can know, okay, if they don't get that thing, then it is going to be the end of the world to them, right? The one thing they wanted, they're not going to get. Or it can mean, public embarrassment. It can mean, in something like a romance story, right? They want a particular person. And then if they can't get that person, it can doom them to certain things. I think one of the reasons, especially like romance stories, a lot like the sort of 1800s, like European courting season, you have like Pride and Prejudice, you have Bridgerton, you have like these different stories that have focused around that kind of aesthetic. I think part of that is they're able to build in stakes with those because if this woman does not marry the person that she wants to, then she does not have a way to financially support herself, or her family does not have a way to financially support themselves. That's kind of the big stakes in Pride and Prejudice. If you have it where it's just two people living in a big city, kind of dating, it's like, yeah, there's not going to feel like there's a ton of stakes. That's also part of the reason that in our current culture, all of the relationships feel kind of low stakes because they kind of are, because people are on dating apps and they're all just sitting in big cities. It doesn't really matter what happens to anybody. They don't really care. And so then you don't feel the stakes, right? So I think that's another issue with one of the reasons our stories are bad right now is our world feels kind of strange. Like we don't really have a lot of heroes and we don't have a lot of like high stakes situations. We're all sort of calm in our little homes, kind of doing nothing except looking at the internet. So I like to create those stakes. It's going to require creating an environment in your story where this particular relationship, for example, has to work. Another way to do it is in like Little Miss Sunshine, which is a movie I really like. That is like a family comedy. And in that one, the stakes are public embarrassment, essentially. And so the daughter, Little Miss Sunshine, or Olive, she wants to win this beauty pageant, Little Miss Sunshine. And if she loses, the stakes are, she's going to look like a loser in her father's eyes, and her father cares only about winning and losing. And she's going to be fully publicly embarrassed. And so those two things are adding the stakes to the event, even though the story is not a life and death struggle.
Right. Yeah, thanks a lot, Tyler, for your advice. I shall keep it in mind next time I writing my screenplay.
Perfect.
So yeah, maybe later on if I have question, I will raise my hand. So yeah,
Awesome, man.
thanks a lot. Yeah. See ya.
See you, man. Glad you came on. let's keep it moving right along here. I see Kane has his hand up. We'll go to Kane next. Hey, Tamana, good to see you. Jarrell Kirkland, what's up, man? Good to see you in the chat. Alright. Kane, if you're still there, you can hop in. If not, I will move on. There he is. You're muted, by the way. Kane. Jarrell, do I ever give advice on novel writing? Here and there. I would also argue that a lot of the advice that I give, while it's mainly, I'm usually around screenplays and screenwriting, a lot of it, especially the more foundational stuff, can be all kinds of story mediums. Kane, what's going on, man?
Hey, Sir Tyler. Can you hear me?
I can. Good to hear from you.
Okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Do you have a question for me today?
All right. I'm going to replace my quandary of story with a request.
Okay.
Okay, so we know that anyone that masters becomes tier 1 level of any craft, sculptor, blacksmith, storyteller. Throughout their entire career, they hone and continuously study and research the absolute basics.
Mm-hmm.
Mixed martial artist is great because they know the fundamental basics.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering that if, as you bring each Q&A to a close, that you would kind of offer a food for thought for the audience to kind of reflect on and maybe go study whatnot on vital tools and aspects of the story that you believe is absolutely crucial. Whichever ones you want, I suppose. If you do not have one for the evening, if you want to elaborate on subtext, that would be cool. But that's my request. You know, you hear ideas like treat people the way you want to be treated, or a deeper one is you live 95% of your own life in your own head, but yet we fail at a disrespectfully low level on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to be reminded things. So that's pretty much it. I know you do that on your emails essentially, but if you would want to be a wordsmith, maybe use a different combination of words to explain whatever aspect of story that you think is vital, and that the importance of knowing story before you go into any form, novella, book, anime, TV show, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so essentially you're asking me about studying the foundational basics and what I think are the basics of storytelling, correct?
Correct. If you could, kind of a food for thought at the end of the Q&A, give us something to consider, an aspect that you think is vital, something that leads to, essentially the most powerful stories make an audience feel, and even more so, feel something that is familiar, whether it's tragedy or completely emboldens and liberates someone.
Mm-hmm.
So, philosophical conflict, subtext, the power of it. It's not really limiting, it's actually open doors, and then structure. How, again, that's not necessarily limiting. It's helping you create momentum. The deeper you go into the story, the not verbatim, but it was about the information flow. It's like, not verbatim, but necessary information first, important second, vital information last. Concepts like that build deeper and deeper, raise the stakes more and more emotional, more relatable. So yeah, just essential at the end of the day, like, hey guys, here's this to think about and why it's important, how it's so powerful, why it's so powerful on story itself, not
Sure.
necessarily screenplays or books or what have you.
Yeah. Yeah, I can speak on something like that right now. I would say, thinking about the basics and what are the most fundamental elements of your story. I think if you can understand characters and character choices in scenes, that is 60-70% of good writing. And because a character is going to be the embodiment of a viewpoint, and a choice is going to be a decision between two paths, right? Two ways of living, essentially, right? So, because we face choices every day, right? So it's like we face the choice of, am I going to do my bad habit today or not, right? Am I going to keep smoking cigarettes today, or am I going to take a break, right? Or am I going to be lazy today, or am I going to go to the gym, right? Like those sorts of basic decisions that we make, because we are a character, we are the character in our own lives. Those decisions do matter, and they do define who we ultimately are and who we ultimately become. And it's the same for characters. And one of the things I was saying earlier in this live stream was that a viewpoint needs to be embodied. So for those of you that were on the beginning of this stream, there was someone that was asking about essentially like the devil character in the story, and they were having that as more of a force versus an actual embodied character. And what I would say is, if you can understand that every viewpoint in your story needs to be embodied by human flesh, right? A character that is that symbol, that is going to make your stories way much stronger. It's going to make your character webs that much more interesting, and it's going to make your scenes that much more interesting, because now we actually have other characters who can debate the other side of a particular choice. So I would say, obviously story structure is huge, and I talk about story structure a ton, but I would say that a lot of the great stories that we see across culture, many of them were not made because the writer had because the writer had saved the cat. They were done well because the writer understood that character choices define characters as human choices define the human. And if you can understand that and understand how to express philosophical conflict in choices in a scene externally, then you can write super well. And so that, I think, is the most important thing. Is what a choice is in a story is a moment of where the characters are dealing with conflict on all three levels, right? Where they're dealing with conflict on the external level, right? There's something right in front of us that we have to deal with, right? Like, the cigarette is a external object, and then there's an emotional side, right? Oh, if I do this, then my mom is going to guilt trip me about it, or blah, 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 right? Now we have this emotional connection to another character. And then you have the philosophical, right? Who am I if I make this choice, or if I choose not to do this? And so all those three layers in a story are happening all at the same time. There is no separation in a story from your external conflict, your internal or emotional conflict, and your philosophical conflict. They're all happening at the same time, and they're happening at the same time through a choice. And so that choice can be a small choice in a scene, like the Little Miss Sunshine scene I looked at in that choices video, where is Olive going to eat the ice cream or not? And that can be a huge climactic choice, like the decision of whether or not Luke Skywalker is going to trust the Force to take this shot and destroy the Death Star, or if he's going to use his targeting computer to take this shot, right? Because this is defining his character. It's defining what he actually believes in. Does he actually believe in the Force, or has he been messing with this the whole time? Because now it's all on the line. We have this one moment to choose that will define everything. Does he make the choice to follow the Force, or does he make the choice to stay comfortable and stay with what he knows and use the targeting computer? Choices define scenes, and characters are making choices. And if you can understand characters and choices and really get deep on those two things, you can be an unstoppable storyteller.
Well, okay, Sir Tyler, I appreciate you diving into one immediately. That's going to be all for me for now. I'll check you guys on the Discord village.
Perfect, Kane. Glad you came in.
Oh, yeah. Take care, everyone.
All right. I'm going to do one more today. Yeah, let's do one more. I don't know how to say this guy's name. Discord is sometimes crazy with the names. Hamil Tone? Not quite sure.
Hi.
Oh, what's going on, man? We've spoken before. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm Jesus.
What's going on, Jesus? Good to hear from you.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
Good to see you in the
Hi.
Discord.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad of being here, of checking the channels and the stories of different people.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your question?
Okay. So basically, for a script class in my university,
Mm-hmm.
we basically we were given the channel, we were given the challenge of taking an old fairy tale and basically improve the structure of an old fairy tale. For
Okay.
example, taking Snow White or Pinocchio and trying to improve the story.
Okay.
Um, yeah, because my teachers say that basically a lot of fairy tales, even though they are, even though they are iconic, they are not very well structured,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a lot of, because if you check them from from the lens of payoff and setup, from the lens of character arcs, most of them are not very good in those departments.
Sure.
So basic, okay, okay. So basically, I choose the story of Snow White.
Okay.
So basically, okay. So basically, my philosophical conflict is love versus ego.
Okay.
Okay, okay. And the thing is that in the way I have set up the story, I think that is necessary for the protagonist, in this case Snow White, uh, to be able to grasp and to accept both values. Because in this story, basically, because in this story, at the start of this version is that the evil queen has eliminated all the love of the queen of the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, uh, and she achieved this because there are seven magical dwarfs,
Mm-hmm.
and the thing is that each dwarf represents a type of love. As basically there is an so there is an eros dwarf, there is a filial love, there is an agape love. So basically, the seven types of love of the Greeks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so basically, she manages to strip off all of the love of the kingdom by banning them to the enchanted forest.
Okay.
So basically, Snow White has to get them back to the kingdom so they can restore love in the kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
and defeat the evil queen.
Okay.
Okay, okay, and so the thing of why I think that it's necessary for Snow White to be able to have love but also ego is because in one point, uh, uh, in the middle point, like in the pay section, like in the point 6
Mm-hmm.
of the story, is that basically the dwarves reveal a truth. They reveal that the queen didn't ban. They revealed that the queen didn't really banish them. They went voluntarily.
So what's your question?
Uh, if it's possible for a protagonist to be able to at the end of at the end of the story be able to have the two values and accept them
No.
instead of only choosing one.
No.
Okay.
Here's why. A philosophical conflict should feel like a yin and a yang. right? In the sense of I'll pull up a yin yang just because here. All right. Yeah, here we go. And let me share my screen. Whoops. Share. Yes. Okay. There we go. And you should be able to see that. And we should be good to go. Okay. So a philosophical conflict should feel like this, right? Like on a certain level, the choice needs to be a binary one way or the other, right? Like the idea that you can walk the middle way shouldn't really make a ton of sense for the story. So what I mean is, if we look at like in the choices video, that's my most recent video for those that haven't seen it. There's a few choices I discussed. There's one choice that is one of the most memorable choices in all of filmmaking, which is the Matrix red pill, blue pill scene, right?
Yeah.
There is no way for him to go the middle way on this, right? Why? Because like, oh, well, he could take the 2 pills and eat them. Yeah, but that's missing the point of what he is really choosing here is not one pill or the other. He is choosing 2 philosophical paths he can take, two real life paths that are both an expression of his belief, expression of his worldview. So if he chooses the blue pill, he is choosing to stay inside of the Matrix, to accept the Matrix as reality. If he is choosing the red pill, he is choosing to step outside of the Matrix and choosing to step outside of that reality. There is no way that he can do both at the same time, and that is how a philosophical conflict should feel. Same thing in Little Miss Sunshine, in the ice cream scene that I'm talking about in that video, where I said she either is going to eat the ice cream or she is not, right? If she eats the ice cream, she's showing that she doesn't care about public perception. If she does not eat the ice cream, she is falling under her father's worldview that she does care about public perception. There is no way that she could half eat the ice cream, right? She's either eating it or she is not. And it is better,
Yeah, right.
it is way clearer in your story to build a yin and yang philosophical conflict that is like this, that they are plus and minus, they are positive and negative, they are 2 sides of the same coin where you can't have both at the same time. That is the cleanest way to do it, because it is very hard to choose a third way in a scene. Things are like you're either going one way or you're going the other way, right? We're in Succession. I also talked about Succession in that video. Either they're letting the FBI in the building or they're not letting the FBI in the building. There's no way to half let the FBI in the building, right? It's the same kind of thing. So I think if you are setting up a philosophical conflict that feels like you want to get to the end of the story and it's like not really one or the other, then it's more likely that you need to rework how you're thinking about your philosophical conflict to make it more clear, because that will help make your scenes more clear. Yeah.
Okay, I understand. Okay, and for example, in Toy Story, there is, as you said in your Pixar video, for example, in that story, Buzz and Woody, each one have to be able to take lessons from the other, from the view of the other. So maybe. So maybe it's not possible that one character can have both at the same time, but it's possible that 2 characters can learn from the other, from the other viewpoint of the other.
Yes, absolutely. So you can have, and that's probably what you want, is you can have strong arguments being made on both sides, and you can have moments where a character is choosing the other side and then comes back, right? Or vice versa, right? That can absolutely work. And ideally, the journey of the story is this back and forth between these 2 sides until we ultimately get to a final climactic moment where a decision is made, one side wins and one side loses.
Okay. So for example, in my story, I think that, for example, in the version I have created of Snow White, I think there is one character that already embodies a character arc from going from one viewpoint to the other. For example, the Prince Charming in this version, for example, I have created in this version the Prince Charming. He starts being very egotistical. But the thing, but the thing is that when Snow White has biting the apple, he has the choice to kiss her. But the thing is that in this version, but the thing is that in this version, the cost to that kiss is that he instead will get the I will get a curse upon him. But she will resurrect. So basically, this moment in which he shows that he is no longer only considering himself, but that he's able to have love and be able to sacrifice for others.
Okay.
So basically, that is like. So I think that I think that is one character and one character arc I can have, because in this case he is not having both viewpoints. He's choosing love over ego, over his own life.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an example of him choosing love over evil.
Okay. Uh, I think that why I wanted Snow White to have both viewpoints is because she has to be able to understand that she has to also be able to view for health to view for herself and to have a little bit of ego. Because throughout all the story, she's kind and she's thinking about others. But I would like that in the climax, she is also able to instead of also trying to save the queen, someone that has tortured her and has been abusive to her, she's able to choose what she wants in her life instead of always trying to save everyone.
So what's your climactic choice?
Then instead of instead of also trying to save the queen, she leaves her and goes with her friends and to save the queen. Because in this version, I have
So evil
also
wins.
put yeah. You think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she isn't chosen to save also the queen, because she knows that if she also saves the queen, the queen is going to backstab her, and so basically she has to leave her and think for herself one time, and what she wants.
Yeah, I
So-
mean,
so
it
basically
just
she's-
depends on if you want evil to win in your story or not. But you're not. It's not both. She's making the choice at the end where evil wins.
Well, yeah. If you think that way, yes, she's choosing in that moment. She's choosing ego over love, because she's not being super kindly to everyone. She's choosing herself in that moment.
And the most important choice of the entire story will be your climactic choice, because that choice will define the entire story.
Yeah, right. Okay, I get it. Okay.
So you can do that if you want,
okay.
but I think it's just important to recognize that you're not doing a middle way story. You are coming down on one side or the other of this yin-yang philosophical conflict. So you can do that how you would like, but just keep that in mind that is what you're doing.
Okay, I get it.
Cool.
Okay. Okay. So I think that, as you said, I could change the how the two sides are configured. So basically, even though she chooses ego, she's at the same time choosing love.
I think you just reworked the ending
because-
choice. I think there's a way where you can rework the ending choice in a way where she's not getting taken advantage of, but at the same time is not having to choose evil to win.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Thanks, Tyler.
For sure.
Okay.
Thanks for
Thanks.
hopping in, Jesus.
Okay. Bye.
All right. You know what? I'm gonna go to these final two because I see both of them have been waiting for a while, and then these will be my final two. So Jason, I'll have you hop in here. I hope you guys are enjoying this new way of doing the streams. YouTube chat, if you give me a thumbs up in the chat if you're liking.
Hello?
Hey Jason.
Hello?
YouTube chat, give me a.
I thought there was one more. I didn't know I was the last one.
No, there's one more.
Oh gosh. Woo. Sorry.
You're good.
Sorry.
Yeah, let me know, guys, if you like this version of doing this with the Discord. And yeah, Jason, what's going on, man? What's your question?
Hey, well, I'm currently I'm currently doing a really long process with my story. I'm mainly focused on my premise, and I came up with a problem.
Okay.
With the actual premise itself.
Okay.
So basically, the premise itself is someone who is a hard worker but also stubborn ends up getting a job as the assistant to a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a therapist or whatever that career is out in the country before she finds out that person is a hypnotist. I'm realizing there will likely be only two main characters.
Okay.
So I wanted to ask you, can you still make an interesting story even with the lack of a lot of main characters, or do you need a bunch of side characters too?
Yeah, good question. So here's what I would say. It is very, very, very difficult to create a full feature film that is only two characters the entire time. Not a single one comes to my mind. I think the closest I've seen personally is 10 Cloverfield Lane, and that movie has 3 key characters in it. But the issue is essentially this. So, and hopefully I think you can see this whiteboard.
Of course I can.
Cool. So if you have your protagonist here, you have your antagonist on the other side, right? They're going to have some sort of conflict. So the problem is, let's say, like, if there are going to be scenes, okay, one problem is every single scene is these two characters talking to each other, and that's pretty boring, right? Because it's like, okay, we just get 2 hours of two characters talking to each other. That's no fun. Now,
not be a story like want to see.
Right, exactly. Now the other issue, and now, okay, well, they won't have to be in the same scene every time. We'll have them be by themselves sometimes. It's like, okay, so then half your movie is characters just being by themselves. It just ends up feeling kind of not that interesting, right? However, if you have at least 2 more characters that are, they can be essentially opponent 1, opponent 2, right? Now we have kind of a 3-way antagonistic sort of web. Now the characters have other people to talk to, right? All of them have other people to discuss, other people to weigh in on their thought process, other people to allow the audience to hear what our character is thinking, right?
Right.
So something like 4, I think 4 is a great base number of characters. Having 4 is really, really strong. Another thing you can do is have 6, and you can have sort of supporting characters. You on like kind of like an angel and devil on the shoulder of your protagonist antagonist, if you wanted to think about it that way, right? Because the idea being, this is like how a lot of like Disney movies like to do this kind of thing, where we have like our princess who has like the horse and the bird, right? And the horse and the bird travel with the princess the whole time, and they essentially say, do this, but what about this? And kind of they become sounding boards for the main character to actually get the main character's thought process out so that we can make decisions in that scene where we understand why the main character is doing what they're doing. But I think doing 4 and doing like a character web with a 4 quadrant like this is usually the strongest starting point to doing it. I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you have at least 4 characters in the story. And especially if you want to do something that is like contained, where you are containing the characters in a certain location or area, all the more reason to add more characters, not less. Because if you have more characters in that location, it makes the place more dynamic, because people make things more dynamic, right? People make life more interesting and more dynamic, and that's what we want to see in a story as well. So, like, that's why something like 12 Angry Men works, where 90% of the movie, 95% of the movie is 12 men sitting in a room, because they have a big choice to make. Is this person guilty or not? And it's 12 people discussing that the whole story. And it works because we have multiple characters that have their own perspectives around that table.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. This one is kind of dumb, but pets don't count, right? Pets don't count.
Pets can count if you make them a person. So essentially what you're doing with if they're a talking pet of some kind, then they can count. But if they cannot communicate at all, then it makes it pretty hard for them to be a character. But essentially what you're doing with like a talking pet is making them a character that is lower on the hierarchy, which would essentially be what I was talking about with this, right? The idea that we have the pets or the characters that are, like if this is the general, these guys are the lieutenants. Or if this is the princess, these are the nice pets, right? Like it's the same idea. There's a hierarchy innate with the character web as well as just quadrants.
Yeah, I just thought I'd ask, and I was gonna say, this is a vintage like film, which is meant to be realistic. So, talking pets are out of the question unless you can brainwash a pet to talk.
Sure.
Which that wasn't being done in the 50s. At least I don't think. Not to my knowledge.
Sure.
Maybe the government was doing it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, then I would say, yeah, you want to have some more people in here, and it's going to make the whole story feel better.
Got it. That was already one of my solutions to the problem. Either add side characters or add more main characters.
Cool.
But I just wanted to get your input on this.
For sure. Thanks for hopping in, Jason.
Thanks for answering my question, Tyler.
All right. We have got the final one. Spring Error? Is that what it is? Spring Error?
Hey, Tyler. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Good.
So
what's your name, by the way?
You can call me Mark.
Okay. I can call you Mark. Are you a secret agent?
Oh, no. Not really.
So not really. So maybe a secret agent. Secret agent confirmed. Okay. What's your story question?
Okay. So I have this upcoming project that I've been thinking about since like a few months ago, and I was hoping if you could help me with a few things.
Okay.
So it's like a psychological horror. That's the genre that I'm like planning to write.
Okay.
And so it's about this like character named Jake. So his whole thing is like to like find his missing brother, since like he went missing when they were like very very little, and like he went missing when they were like attending a birthday party at this restaurant called Freddy's, and then and then when he, and then they were like, okay, so like they were at this. Okay, so Jake was like, oh, okay. Let me just think about this for a moment.
Sure.
So like that happened in the past. So in the present, like Jake is now really desperate to find his missing brothers. So he believes that he's still out there, but in reality, he's dead. So like a new Freddy's location opens, and then he believes that this is a great opportunity since he believes that his brother is connected to Freddy's. So whenever a new Freddy's location opens, like he will go there and try to find his missing brother.
Okay.
So okay. So his whole okay. So I've established like his whole thing is like to find his missing brother in a new Freddy's location since he. But the reality is like he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think, Tyler?
I think it's the basis of an idea. You want to find a missing brother, and you want to go to Freddy's and have kind of a haunted house horror. It's a pretty basic concept so far, but I think I mean, you have a character goal, so that's a good start.
Yeah, actually, and oh, so let me explain.
Who are some of the characters coming with him to look for his brother? Is there a character web here?
Oh no, it's just him. It's just him. But there are some characters, I will say. Okay, so like, can I like talk about more about Freddy so you could get like a basic idea of what it is?
Of Freddy's, like, is it like Five Nights at Freddy's? Is that what this is based on?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what. Yeah, that's exactly.
I put the context clues together with your profile pic and you talking about it. I'm the FBI. I'm actually the FBI agent, not you.
You go. So like the other characters are like obviously the animatronics, which are possessed by missing children who also went missing with like his little brother.
I think you need some characters that are with our main character where he's not totally alone inside of Freddy's.
Okay. I'm actually planning to like having him like a person to go with him.
Okay.
And then he's gonna spend 5 nights here trying to look some clues for where his brother has been over the past like years, and he still believes that his brother is missing. He's not dead. And this other character, he okay. Let me explain. So Jake just believes like his brother is still missing, and he's like inside of Freddy's or something. But this other character conflicts with that beliefs. The other character believes that his brother is dead, and that there is like no way he's still alive after been missing for like so many years.
Okay, so this is kind of interesting. So brother equals dead or brother equals not dead is not a philosophical conflict.
Okay, so
because this is essentially like them talking about facts. But I think what you have right now is you essentially have a Five Nights at Freddy's story where we're sending where you have the concept first, right? You like Freddy's, we want to work with that. Awesome. We've got that concept. We want to send. So then all the work you need to do, well, which is a lot, is getting a sense of the story as to why this particular character is coming to this particular Freddy's and having his particular 5 nights at Freddy's, right? So with the whole brother dead, not dead, it's like, okay, this is not really the crux of the dilemma. I think it's what you have is a mystery story, right? So you have horror thriller, but really you kind of have this mystery, right? Because the brother is missing. So I think you need to kind of build this out like a mystery. And essentially, building out mysteries is you need to have a full understanding of what exactly happened to the brother. Exactly. Who was involved? What's all the reasons for Freddy's? Like, you have to essentially make it not cool to you because you know everything about the mystery, and then you have to shroud that for the audience and take your character through this journey of like finding clues as they're going through the different nights at Freddy's. But I think right now you need to build this like a mystery, and the big thing is I think you need all of the details completely about how his brother died and what that looked like, and what was his brother after, what did it look like, why was he at a Freddy's, all of that. And then you can build this mystery story.
Oh, I'm actually planning to like show of how the brother was missing. Actually, it's gonna. I have an idea that it's gonna be like the opening scene. So it's like we're seeing the past, and then after the title card, we move to the present.
Is there Five Nights at Freddy's is a game, right? Is there any sort of story content on it so far? Like have people made a show or anything about that, or anything like that about it?
I mean, there is the movie just like came out like
there's
a
a movie?
month ago. I don't know if you've seen it or anything.
You haven't?
Oh, I've seen the movie and all.
Okay.
I know all the lore. It's just that I'm creating a different lore, like a different universe. Just like how Five Nights at Freddy's has like books or like the movie, which is a different lore. So I wanna like create something like that is like not tied to the original game, but have it set in a universe where it's like also Five Nights at Freddy's.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so I think what you have is you're gonna have a mystery story. This needs to feel like a mystery in the sense of you're not gonna reveal what happened to the brother immediately, but you need to know as the writer. And then I would suggest our brother character, our main character, is coming in with at least 2 other characters with them to go in and look around for Freddy, or it's just gonna be. I mean, maybe it could just be him the whole time if you're really doing like a mystery. It could be.
Oh no, I could like add some like 1 or 2 characters to like go with him, but they're not gonna be with him like all the 5 nights. They're gonna be with
Sure.
him like I'm suggesting like in night 2 or 3 or something. But in the 3 last nights, it's just gonna be him.
In the Five Nights at Freddy's movie that came out, how many characters are in it?
Let's see. Okay, so let me just
characters with our main character.
So like in the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, he goes alone in the first night, but in the other nights he brings his little sister along, which is Abby. Abby and also this other character named Vanessa.
Okay. So
Like
there's a couple of
literally 2 characters. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I think you should probably do something similar to that. But yeah, I mean, I think you have an idea that can work for sure. And obviously I would use the existing Five Nights at Freddy for a lot of your source material because they've done one which is good for you, so you can take what they've done and make it unique to you.
Yeah, really. And also the reason why like Jake is like going after like his missing brother. Okay, this is gonna be some metaphorical like stuff. So is it okay for you if I explain this in a more metaphorical way?
What are you explaining?
The reason there's like a deeper like thing going on here on why his like Jake is going after his missing brother. It's so like you said, I want to make it unique. So I have this idea. I already have an idea on why he's like going after his missing brother in a more deeper way.
Okay. What is that?
Oh. The reason why it's kind of like his backstory, like him and his like brother are like twins when they were like when they were attending at Freddy's. They were like the same age, like he's pretty close with his brother, actually, really close.
Could you summarize why he's doing it in one sentence and take your time? Pause for 15 seconds and give it to me in one sentence.
Okay. He's okay. Okay, I don't know if you're gonna understand this, but after explain it to you, I'm gonna explain it actually. He's he's going after he's he's going to find his missing brother, not because for the sake of finding his missing brother. It's because he feels empty inside, like without him. Since okay, let me explain. So okay, him and his little brother are pretty close at a really young age, and like when
I
he
feel like
went
I feel like he feels empty is just sort of natural with the fact that he has a missing brother, right?
like
I think
yeah, but for him, he never really moved on with that. And after many years, he's still thinking about his like little brother. He's trying to fill that hole in him that is like missing, which in this case, for which is his little brother. So that's why he's like going after a new Freddy's location in the first place.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I think you have. I think you take these basic pieces. I would love to see you build out a few more characters and build out exactly what happened to the brother. And yeah, I think you do a Five Nights at Freddy's fan fiction version, and it should be fun.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, I wanna like explain like two more things that I think I would need some help. And
I got a sense of the story. Do you have particular questions that are not going to be 17 sentences?
can you explain what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
I mean, if you're gonna add, so the reason I was asking you to pause, collect your thoughts, and speak is I want to help you and have an understanding of what it is you're saying. But if you're speaking a ton and not speaking in sentences that are bringing any clarity, then I'm not able to help you. So if you have another question, I am happy to answer that question. Take a second, pause, and then ask me a question in one sentence.
Okay. Okay, so like, can I summarize the whole thing so you could understand it a little bit better?
I understand the basic premise of the idea. It's not a complicated idea at all. It's very simple. You have a character who wants to search after their brother. We have a horror thriller based on the Five Nights at Freddy's series that I'm fairly familiar with that already exists. So I'm pretty clear on the basic elements of the story. I don't need a summary of the whole beats.
Okay. So okay. So like I'm particularly asking to like whether to like tie the animatronic characters of all this. So like we got Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and then the mysterious Golden Freddy. Okay, these are the four animatronic mascots, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking to like tie them to like the main character, since they did went missing at the same time with his little brother in the like pizzeria. And then I was thinking that okay, what are some of the things that I could do to like tie them to to the like main character. Since okay.
You could make the brother one of the animatronics in some way.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. So like he got he didn't get stuffed into the main ones, but I was thinking of making him like possess he's possessing an unused animatronic. Yeah, that I was planning on that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that can be cool.
And then it's gonna like okay, how do you say that?
Take your time.
So like what are your thoughts so far about this story that I like
I think
yeah.
you should write it.
Yeah. And do you have any some sort of like okay, so the stakes are okay, I'm
I
gonna
think I'm
explain.
gonna go ahead
The
and
stake
wrap it up here. I think you should write the story. I think it's gonna be cool. Go ahead and get some more details down on it, and we can speak more about it later on. But I think right now I have a pretty good sense of what it is you're working on. I think you should build out some of those characters, get a really strong sense of what's happening with the brother, and we can go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the stream here. Let's see. You guys have been super cool. YouTube chat, let me know if you guys have enjoyed this version of the stream. I know that some of you guys have been watching these streams for a while, of me talking to chat as well as talking to Discord. Thank you guys in the Discord for hopping in, asking questions, that kind of thing. If you guys are interested in getting my full story framework, essentially my full process for writing a story, as well as my ideas on essentially your writer's mindset, your mindset as a writer, and a process to actually finishing your screenplay, then I would highly suggest you check out practicalscreenwriting.com. It is below me right here on the live stream. Practicalscreenwriting.com. That is where my course is housed, and it takes you through the mindset you need, the story framework you need to actually organize your story, and then a process and system to actually be consistent about writing that story forward. Thank you guys so much for hopping onto the live stream today. This has been a ton of fun. I'm going to continue these for sure. And I'll see you all next Thursday. Talk then.